44.
Is it Morgan here or is it just me?
I think it's just you. Do you need it turned down?
No, that's all right.
Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go ahead and call the city council meeting to order. Today is Thursday, February 18th. Appreciate everybody being here this evening. We're going to shift up a little bit of the order of operations under department and board reports. We're going to, since Amby's got with the weather deteriorating this evening, Amby's going to follow Vince Smith, and then Matt Gregory's going to follow Amby, and then Jerry Arnold, since he's calling in, is going to be in the fourth spot tonight. So when I jump around a little bit, that's the method to the madness. And then when Amby's finished with her report, she's going to skedaddle on home. So as we begin, I'd ask that under the moment of silence that we continue to keep Jack Rigger, councilman, in your prayers, as well as Mary Albaugh and Pam Bucklew as well. Thank you. And since Mary is here and with us, I'm going to ask that she lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
On the flag, there we are. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay.
Get back here.
I can't breathe.
All right. Joe, you are a guest this evening. I will let you decide. Do you want to address the council, or do you want to wait until F3 is discussed? It's up to you.
Wait, no big deal this week.
Are you sure?
Yep.
Okay, I'll give you the option. So there are no other guests, I don't believe, that want to address the council this evening. Nope, nobody's on the phone and nobody else is here. So with Joe's yield, we will go ahead and begin with our department and board reports with Mr. Smith.
Hello, everyone. How are you?
Everyone well?
Under correspondence, you'll see that we had a zoning board of appeals hearing for Leonard Street. Gentleman started the project, had laid the block foundation up. His setback requirements didn't meet, so I stopped him and told him that the process, and he came through, and luckily he was about 4 feet off of what he needed, and the Board of Appeals approved it. So he is continuing his project now. So that went well. The other, I guess we want to talk about the historic landmarks. We're going to go down to F1 and F2.
Yep.
The historic landmarks did the turnstile signs that you see there on Main Street by CJ's property. Nice sign. I mean, we've talked about it for a while, and I think if we get those out, that it has good information on it. I believe that's probably, and that was the general consensus of the Historic Landmarks Commission, that it looked good, clean, and did what we wanted it to do, to be very informative. So I think that was a good thing.
So how many of those do you want, or do you need?
Well, I think they're thinking they want 4 of them total. Isn't that what?
Well, I think one for each block, so I think 3.
Right.
So 1 at the courthouse block, one where in CJ's block, which we already have, and then 1 in the Dairy Queen block.
Okay.
Because it would have 4. They would have
on
4
each side.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
When I talked to Noel, I tried to convince him to transfer the little stories on the ones up high down to the one low, is that is that the content, or you have some different content?
We had discussed, I think at Historic Landmarks, that in these blocks, we already had 2 of them done. Because, and it may take some tweaking and some modification of the format to get them to fit, but we already have 2 stories basically per block already, the way it is now. So that's what we were gonna take the content that's already up in the air and make it down to eye level, street level.
Make it fit legible onto those turnstiles.
The turnstiles would replace what's currently there that's hoisted up higher that you can't, that.
Nobody can read.
Right. That's the whole point is and we want to make sure that things are written concisely with maybe a picture or 2, that way people can read it in 30 seconds and take something, take the information with them that is a talking point moving forward. Because if it's too wordy, if it's going to take you 4 or 5 minutes to read, you're not going to absorb it, and you're not even going to really stop to read it as it would be. So trying to model what CJ's already done in front of our insurance agency and Miller's Pharmacy, but taking that to the other blocks of town.
Right. Good. I mean, I think they're on board with it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, the other one with the historic landmarks was the design criteria. We kicked it around. You got to be real careful with that. We have historic buildings, some of our neighboring, areas that have historic areas have very strict design criteria. That's a double-edged sword. You can have people hold them to those standards, but some of them are not going to put the money in the building to fix it up. So then you have a dilapidated building. So you've got to be very careful with that. So what our plan was that we would do suggestive design criteria. Really has not a lot of teeth in it, but it would suggest that we would like to see it done, to match what's in the surrounding areas. So that's kind of what we're leaning to, what we've talked about. The design criteria, I think we could stir up a real can of worms there.
Yeah. The Historic Landmarks Commission has reviewed different cities that have very stringent design criteria outlines, and for example, the town of Shepherdstown over in the Eastern Panhandle, their design criteria is about 1 inch thick. They get so specific that they want to be able to tell you what color to paint your door, what kind of windows you can put in. But if you've been to Shepherdstown, it's a very, very, very historic community. Virtually every building in that community would be considered historic and built, more than 100 years ago. So, and it's been very well taken care of. But there's a different culture there. It's a smaller community there, and they have a lot of Washington D.C. influence that's come in there, and a lot of people with a lot of money have put money in those buildings there. And here in the central part of the state, we reviewed design criteria that Fairmont has, as well as in the Northern Panhandle what Wheeling has. Wheeling has a more stringent criteria than Fairmont does. Fairmont still has a design criteria, although it's a little bit more loose. But our point here is we just want to share the information, share what would be considered to be historically accurate for the structures contributing inside the historic district as just suggestions, not you absolutely have to do this. And we've kicked this around for several years. As a council member, I served on the Historic Landmarks Commission, and I think for at least 3 of the 4 years, we discussed this. CJ's wife, Jeannie, was on it as well. And she can attest because she did our reporting to the state, and that included, if we're going to or are we not going to include a design criteria. But this was unanimously suggested upon to refer to City Council that we just create a nice listing of suggestions and allow the homeowner or building owner to then determine, we're supplying them with the information. If they choose to utilize what we're supplying, that's great. If they have a different idea, that's fine as well. That way we're not being too intrusive. We're not trying to dictate what people can and can't do to their property. We want people to have that freedom.
Ultimately, we want them to fix their property.
Correct.
Right.
And we fear that if we get too stringent, it's going to become too costly and the properties are just going to sit there. And
Who was going to develop this advice? Or you're going to have an architect, a designer, or?
We talked about the Historic Landmark Commission getting together and designing, throwing some things up with the input from what we have, the paper from Shepherdstown and Wheeling and Fairmont. Just kind of do a condensed version of all that. Nothing real elaborate, but just,
Yes, we would involve architect, city attorney, Vince, of course, the Historic Landmarks Commission, you as a historic property owner downtown. And then when we get the final list together, we would bring it back to council for council's review. This tonight is to basically just get the head nod to move forward, that's the direction we want to go, instead of developing an actual you must do this type of listing.
That's good.
All right, just a brief, I've been doing the building and wiring and the code enforcement throughout the city. We get permits on a very regular basis throughout. A couple projects you talk about, the community care project. That was an old building that was in disrepair. Community care come in and put a lot of money in that building. Thank God we had somebody to save that building. That's what happens if you have buildings that nobody wants to put money in, they fall in disrepair. Community care made a very nice office down there. They're working on the upstairs of the other building now that is in the floodplain to make more offices for community care, clerical offices. So, and they're going to use the bottom for kind of meeting room that's below the floodplain. So they've done a good job with that. We've got 3 projects that are starting. We've got Lowe's is putting in a tool rental place, so that's something new coming in. We've got the new auction house going out on the Brushy Fork Road, which is a pretty good project. We're about ready to let the permit out on it. And we've got the old Armory pharmaceutical facility there. We just issued a demo permit, which is a pretty substantial demo permit there. So they're going to do a lot of work. The reason they wanted to do the demo so the architect could come in after the demo to make sure his plans were right for the rebuild. So they're doing it right, doing a good, they're going to do a good job with it. The problem, or not really a problem, but they requested that they have an 8-foot fence with barbed wire. Well, if you look around in that, the Army Corps, the Army, but that's behind, they have a 8-foot fence with barbed wire. Moore's Business Forms, they have an 8-foot fence with barbed wire. Probably, and they were going to do a black one, to make it nice. So I told them we're probably going to end up going to the zoning board of appeal, but just wanted to give council a heads up that you may see around that building an 8-foot fence with barbed wire. So, and they have to have a secure facility. I think we all understand that.
Right.
So that's just something out there that we're going to work through.
What zone is that there?
It's commercial. We changed it.
That's what I thought.
It's highway commercial, I believe.
The front part, the industrial part's in the back.
Huh?
Industrial in the back.
Industrial, and yeah, where the Army Corps is. Half of it, the first, 250 feet or something?
Maybe about 100 feet.
Is commercial.
It's commercial,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, is it 100?
It's
Okay.
not very much,
Okay.
just the front
Yeah.
part of it.
I knew that, I just hadn't heard it
Yeah.
exactly that way. And the Moore's property is gonna be enhanced with that too?
No, it's in the same area.
Same area, that was my question.
Yes, it's in
Thank
the
you.
same area. So, it just wanted you not to be shocked if you end up seeing a fence around that. All right, so the other things we're working on, we've got storage buildings that were placed in the floodplain that were not properly anchored. Jay and I, about 2 years ago, put out letters, and some complied, some didn't. Just wanted to give you a heads up that we're going to get a little more aggressive with that. When FEMA comes in for their review, if it's not done, then they take points from us. So we're going to get a little more aggressive with those buildings.
Are these residential storage buildings or are these commercial storage buildings?
Residential storage buildings.
Wow.
They're the ones you buy at Lowe's and 33, that the place that sells the prefab storage buildings. And the problem with that is they bring them in 2 hours, they've dropped them off, set them up, and they're gone.
They don't get a permit, they don't get a permit to get that before they have it delivered?
Well, we try to get them to get a permit. We've talked to a lot of people, the sellers of the buildings, and they know that that's required. We have a zoning application that's required to make sure you don't encroach on your neighbor's property and all that, but there are still some that sneak in. We get them after the fact to make sure, but then they're still there. It doesn't make it right. The building's still there, it's not properly anchored, and it's in the floodplain. So just an FYI, we're going to get a little aggressive with that here over the next month or so. All right. The other thing is, I just like to see people keep their sidewalks clean in the snow so we can walk safely down our sidewalks. We have trash containers that people, after the trash pickup day, they love to leave the trash containers out, so we've been writing them warnings on that, trying to get that cleaned up. It's unsightly to have trash cans 4 or 5 days in the front of your house. So we've been working on that. And the last thing is, it's a state requirement that any refrigerators that are out, and Matt's helped with that as well, it's a state law that if you have a refrigerator out to prevent a child from climbing in the refrigerator and suffocating, the doors have to be removed from the refrigerator. So we just want to tell that to everyone, and hopefully we can get compliance there. Any questions?
We need motions on these?
Yeah, I was going back and forth with it, but I think it would be best for just the minutes and the process that we do that. But before we go down that road, does anybody have any questions or comments for Vince's report?
This is Pam. I wanted to ask a question about the garbage that's being set out. I've noticed, like, on Main Street, in front of some businesses, and it's not necessarily businesses, but apartments. Can we not not do something about not making them have a toter to put their garbage bags in?
Well, okay, so this conversation has come up at the waste board meeting. This was back in the fall. The issue with Main Street is, and I hear you, because especially on a hot summer evening, having trash sitting out in bags on the street is not, it's not a great addition for the atmosphere. But the problem with downtown is that the alley network in behind Main Street, we can't get the trash trucks back in behind a lot of the buildings. So that we don't have a great alley network downtown. So that's why we have trash pickup on Main Street. CJ requested a toter for the block where Miller's Pharmacy is, and Thompson's, and myself, and the Opera House and the Chamber, that we could put our trash into the toter that he wheels out every Tuesday afternoon, and then that way it's all centralized in one tote and not sitting out on the street. We could, this would have to go before waste board and go back for, if anybody else would be CJ came before waste board and requested that he be able to do this, and the request was granted. So,
Well, I agree with that, but there's a little bit more up the street where sometimes there's 8 or 10 bags, and I think if we approach the owner of apartment buildings and even more up the street, that they should be basically made to put a toter out there for their
The issue is they put them out not on the pickup day.
Yeah, they leave them out there. That's what we don't want to happen. We've had that problem there on Spring Street, the apartment building there on the corner. We've had a terrible time with that, and Jeff and I have fought that for, quite some time, but there's no place to put your toters. That's the problem. And I'm sure with your business, you're going to take the toter inside, right? Most people don't want to do that. They don't want that toter in their
They
house.
don't have somewhere to store it,
Right.
like with a particular case of the Lewis building on the corner of Main Street and Spring Street, the owner of that building is not here, but Jerry and Vince have repeatedly, made the owner of that building aware that what night trash pickup or what morning trash pickup is, and what the expectation is, and that continues to be an issue because it seems like the different tenants in that building in the upstairs part, they are not always communicated with as to when the trash day is from their landlord, and so there's trash put out on the street all evenings of the week because they don't all go in the same. They're not all aware of the exact date. So it is an ongoing issue. I mean, and we're fortunate where we have owners of buildings that reside here and are constantly observing their buildings and part of their buildings, like Mr. Rylands is. He works in his buildings and is in his buildings every day, so it's easy for him to wheel the tote out and be aware of when the trash pickup is. But if you have an owner that is not here, how to facilitate getting the toter, where to store it, and how to get the trash in there on the right evening, sounds like it shouldn't be that difficult, but it is a logistical issue if the building owner is not present. So it's, again, the waste board would be the place to have the full discussion with Jeff Wamsley and with Jerry, and then the board, the actual waste board members themselves. But I hear you. I mean, it's been an ongoing issue for quite some time, and on a 90-degree summer evening, it's not so pleasant if you walk down the street on Tuesday evening.
Maybe we need to go.
Yeah, I mean, it just doesn't look good for people from out of town coming through town and, you know, so, but yeah, that's something we can talk about later.
We'll bring it back up as a conversation point at the next waste board meeting.
That's good.
Thank you.
Anything else for Vince before we look to ask for some action on the 2 line items below?
Well, I want to commend Vince and Jay and the others been working on this effort to step things up a bit. We have ordinances, and if we don't enforce them, there's no reason to have them, number one.
Right.
Number two, I'm a landlord, and I appreciate the guidelines that are set forth, and you know, to keep people safe and so forth. So, as the council, we need to continue to support them and let them do their job. And
Well, and Jay has done very well by the city through FEMA with all the grants and everything. We don't want to upset FEMA and say,
Right.
hey, we're done giving you funding for your projects because you're not complying. So it's a necessary, it's going to be a necessary evil.
Well, and you know, and there's times where Vince's position is probably one of the most difficult within the city, because you know, it's not pleasant to go to a property owner and say you're out of compliance for this, or this. And Vince does a great job, and I've been with him when he's done that to get permits out of folks, and you know, and I've, you know, we all get the phone calls when someone doesn't want their property moved or doesn't think that they've done anything wrong. But I too commend Vince. We made a conscious effort. You know, once we had the first housing enforcement board meeting back in July, August timeframe, that we were going to really work hard to maintain the city's rights of ways and the paper alleys that exist within the corporate limits. And we've done a good job of that. And when I say we, you know, Vince and his team of getting out there to not only enforce it, but to educate the people as to why it's important to keep rights of ways clear. So yes, it's not an easy job, but we're fortunate to have Vince, and a lot of cities look to us as with eyes of envy, because we have someone like Vince who's here to not always make friends, but to keep the city, you know, in line. So
That's why I don't live in Buckhannon.
Thank you for what you do, Vince.
You're welcome.
Oh.
we're going to buy you a sweater, and you can go around and say, "Won't you be my neighbor?" So we need a couple of motions.
yes, so
Yes, so moved.
under F1, I'd like for the council to approve moving forward with the turnstile signage for historic information in the downtown district. We have a motion?
So
moved. Yeah.
Motion by Mr. Rylands. We have a second by Mrs. Bucklew. I'd ask for the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those like sign opposed? Okay, motion carries. F2. I want to preface this as the concept that we're moving forward. We will come back to the council with the list that is going to be the suggestions. So we want the Historic Landmarks Commission wanted the nod of approval from council to move forward with the concept. So we'd like to, as earlier discussed, include a suggestion design criteria for folks who own property who would perform renovations or new construction within historic districts of our community.
So moved.
We have a motion by Mr. Thomas. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Mrs. Allball. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Like sign opposed. The motion has carried. Okay, I think we're through Mr. Smith's report. Why don't you head down the road before it starts snowing?
I'm gonna beat you. I'm not farther to go than you did.
Hey, Richard, you stay at my house if you want. I
Oh,
don't care.
geez.
Yeah, I told him he could stay in town tonight.
Thanks for
Thanks, Vince.
Thanks, Vince.
Be careful going home.
Thanks for what you do, Vince.
You're welcome.
Great guy.
Okay, Amby Jenkins's financial report.
Yep. I'll concur about Vince, by the way. We have actually other communities ask if he could come to work for them. And
We told them no.
no, we give Vince a really hard time in the office, but that's just keeping on his toes. Okay, so I'm going to give you your balances for the utility boards this evening, ending January 31st. The Waste Collection Board, money market and checking was $757,564. And the CD and savings remained the same at $58,033. Water Board money market and checking $193,418. The CD and savings $965,476. And the Sanitary Board money market and checking was $592,709, and their CDs are at $253,190. The bills in your packet to be approved, the ones I like to point out to you worth noting. J.F. Allen, $1,663 was for stone for the access road to the hospital. And then we actually spent $3,263 to St. Joseph's Hospital. That was for employee COVID testing for the employees that are paid out of the general fund. And of course, that CARES money helped to take care of that. We still have some of that. The other thing I wanted to just give highlights, and council already knows this, but this is highlights for the public's information. We've had 2 budget working sessions for the budget that begins July 1st of this year and ends June 30th of next year. We have timelines that we have to meet, and the budget isn't approved yet. It won't be approved until March, but I just want to give you highlights about discussions that happened during that time. The total expenditures for general funds draft budget is $5,112,000. The expenses include normal operations plus a few of the things I'm going to note. $91,100 was in street capital expenses, which include a new loader. There's $131,000 in street projects and $75,000 in paving. Largely, that's going to be for the Spring Street project that would pave and replace some sidewalks. That project's pretty large and includes lots of utilities that needed attention before they pave. The police department addressed their budget. They addressed differential pay for ranking officers and certification that added $26,400 to the payroll. And then there's $17,000 in that budget for their volunteers and police service expenses. The fire department budget included payment for the new fire truck that's supposed to arrive this year. And $41,000 went towards accreditation, GIS software, hoses, Stairmaster computer, and their volunteer expenses. And then council's going to continue to discuss the request for hire of 3 additional firemen. The Stalker Youth Center asked for hire of 1 more full-time person. This was actually in this year's budget, but they refrained from hiring them since the programs were greatly reduced due to the pandemic. So she just kind of wanted to reiterate that will remain in the budget. We haven't hired anyone yet. City Hall's request includes $120,000 to replace the roof that is leaking. The budget also includes 30 cents per hour increase for all of the full-time city employees. And council would contribute $10,000 more to the Upshur County Development Authority. And then council will have probably at least 2 more working sessions. We were just talking this evening about when to schedule that, so we'll be getting with you to schedule that. That will be posted to the public as well, and the media will be notified when we are going to have those. Council has to approve that budget by March the 28th, that's a reminder. And then we have to lay the levy in the on April the 20th, Tuesday, April the 20th, and that's in your agenda as well.
Council, as you're familiar, we've done this several years. Well, we've done this every year. It is required that every municipality, every county commission in the state meet on the same day at the same time to lay their levy. The proposed here is Tuesday, April 20th, 2021 at 9 a.m. We, like I said, we meet to do that every year. So could I get a motion that we set the time for that date to lay our levy?
So move.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Sanders. We have a second by Mrs. Allball. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those like sign opposed?
Aye.
We'll count Pam as an aye, 4. So, and then,
I get it.
I know, I always forget that there's a delay. We were discussing earlier this evening about additional budget working sessions. Would you think about maybe seeing if Wednesday, February 24th, that would be next Wednesday, would work for you all to get together?
I can have Teresa send out the memo just to make sure everyone's calendars, they can check them.
Okay, that sounds good.
Okay.
Robbie, I probably can't be there because I'm actually starting back to work on Tuesday and I've got a pretty full schedule.
Okay. Well, it's a good problem to have because you're going back to work. So,
Yep. Being off almost 8 weeks, it's going to kill me.
well, we can look at time maybe. I mean, it could possibly be an evening meeting if need be but we do need to have some more sessions before we get to the March 18th council meeting. So we'll work on scheduling and see if we can't get a date where everybody can be here. Okay. Does anybody else have anything for Amby? We thank you for working on the budget. It's a tall task every year. So, and I know there are some of us in the room, not including myself, that drive you nuts with it. So.
So you think the first will be February 24th?
Well, we were just looking at the calendar in Amby's office earlier, just as a date that we could throw out to the council to see what might work. Amby's tied up on Thursday. I'm tied up on Tuesday. For the open government rules, we have to allow enough time to set an agenda, so Monday won't work. So we're looking at Wednesday if we do it next week. We could always do it the following week as well, but we do need to get back together as a council to discuss what we've been presented and kind of start putting it together.
I have an issue with the 1st of March and the 5th of March.
Well,
Okay.
that's not the date, was it?
No.
No.
Okay, so February 24th was the date.
Well, that's the proposal, but like Amby said, we'll have Teresa work on it tomorrow for us
Okay.
and see what date's going to work best and time what's going to work
So we
best.
probably need at least 2 more.
Yeah, I would say. Yeah.
Okay.
So just
And that's due in by the March 28th, Andy? or
Yes,
27th?
the ideal thing is that you approve it on the 18th, which is the council meeting just before the due date, rather than come back and approve it another time. So if it's ready on the 18th for approval, that'll meet within all those guidelines.
while you're still here, before Matt gets into his report, I'd like to look at F5 before we let you go and then segue into Matt's report, if that's okay. This is a request equipment transfer from the Buckhannon City Police Department to the Upshur County Sheriff's Department. So Matt and Amby, if you take it away, and then once we're done with that, Amby, go home.
Okay.
Yeah, this is a request from the Sheriff's Department. We're just help facilitating this to council. As you know, we just took 3 of our oldest cruisers, the 2013 police interceptors, out of service and are going to be trading those into Enterprise for value against our new acquisitions. As we took these out of service, we had to take the existing equipment out. Enterprise did not want any of the equipment back, and that included the barricade partitions that we have between the passenger, the driver's area, the passenger area, and the cargo area. And the Sheriff's Department is requesting that we transfer 2 of those cargo barriers to them, as they do not have those at this time for those vehicles. They are specifically fitted for 2013 models, so we cannot use them anymore, as we don't we no longer have 2013 models, and they wouldn't fit any of our current fleet. So that was part of the request. The request also included 2 seats that we took out of the K9 unit, which is our most recent acquisition, which is a 2020 Ford Interceptor. The 2 back seats had to be taken out to allow room for the K9 insert. And we talked to Enterprise, because the K9 insert is specifically fitted into the vehicle, they didn't need the seats back. I've since talked to the Sheriff's Department. They did say that they do not any longer need the seats, but just the partitions. So that would be the focus of their request tonight for council's consideration.
So it would be your recommendation that we go ahead and fulfill the request and help our brethren up the street?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
We're gonna help them up the street and give this stuff to them free, or they're gonna make a donation towards the dog food and the care.
They didn't indicate.
Wow.
Yeah, so.
So Chief, in this request, it changed a little bit?
Yes, it would take away the seats, and they're just now requesting the
2 rear passenger
barricades.
seats.
Yes.
That's good.
I move we,
Second.
That- yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Rollins and Thomas.
Yep. Is there any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Like sign opposed, motion is carried. Thanks, Amby. Be careful going home.
Thanks, Andy.
Thank you, Matt. And
Be safe.
we'll just segue right into your report.
Okay. The bulk of my report tonight is the annual report. I'll just hit the highlights, and of course entertain any questions relative to the report or any other police matter once I'm through here. As you will note, the report for 2020 is made up of 2 main areas of data. The first, obviously, is the police activities, to include how we spend our time, how many arrests were made, how many reports were taken, types of arrests, types of reports, etc. The second part of the report is something I've been including the last couple of years, and that is the annual report from the Mountain Lakes Drug and Violent Crime Unit, of which we've been a part of now for about 3 years. So one thing to note with the task force report, and that is that it is a report for the entire task force. It's not specifically focused on Buckhannon. Now, however, Buckhannon is a part of the task force. However, the report itself focuses on the entire region, and that is all of Upshur County, Lewis County, and Braxton County. And we've just invited Barber County into our task force here in the last year as well. So these stats presented in the task force report are reflective of the region and not just specifically Buckhannon. But of course, Buckhannon is very much a part of that. For the police activities, you will find that for the most part, across the board, the numbers were either consistent as opposed to last year or the last couple of years. And I always try to, as you've seen in years past, I always try to include at least a 3-year trend, just to kind of get a snapshot of where the activities are. And so for 2020, the numbers were, again, either consistent or down, and for the most part down. And that is due in large part to, obviously, the pandemic. We saw accidents greatly decrease. Misdemeanor arrests are down noticeably, as are citations. And again, I attribute that in large part to the pandemic. The one thing that was consistent, unfortunately, for the year was drug activity. And again, I believe that was due in large part to the pandemic as well. We saw a period of time in the middle of the year last year, where we were having several cases of overdoses, not just here in the city, but in the surrounding community, which prompted the task force to conduct a couple of different very specific raids that occurred throughout our community to address these issues. Offense reports taken for last year were 606, and that was down slightly from 670 the year prior. Again, I said accidents were down noticeably. There were only 127 accident reports. And one thing that remained consistent was the number of accidents with injuries, or at least the percent as compared to the total number of accident reports. There were 34 accidents that involved injuries and no fatalities last year. So that was 27% of all accidents had some type of injury. And that was down significantly from 156 the year before and 181 total accidents in 2018. The top 5 crimes for 2020 is relatively the same. The one difference that you will find, and it looks like it was a marked increase, was that of felony arrests. And that's really a false positive, if you will. And the reason I say that and what I mean by that is there were a couple of cases in the middle of 2020 where a multitude of felonies were committed. They involve such things as credit card fraud and access or fraudulent use of an access device. And this resulted in numerous felony charges for those individual events. And I want to say that there were 2 specific events that netted that number of felonies. And so that makes the total felony arrest look like it was a sharp increase. But if you just take those 2 cases away, really felonies are down along with all the other statistics as well.
So you caught them.
I'm sorry?
You caught the people that were there.
We did, yes sir, yes. Misdemeanor arrests were down to 293 last year as compared to 453 and 410 the 2 years prior. And again, felony arrests were 109 as compared to 72 and 81 the 2 years respectively prior to that. Traffic citations, there were 346 citations written throughout 2020 and 555 warnings given throughout the year as well.
That's down sharply from 2019, it looks like.
Oh yeah. And then the top 5 comparisons, it really hasn't changed in terms of what we're dealing with. It's just less of it last year throughout the year. And that includes everything from the types of reports we're taking, the types of citations that are being written, and the types of arrests that are being made. And of course, 911 calls, there were 5,612 911 calls for the city police throughout 2020. That's down just slightly from 2019, which was 5,896. And 2018 it had 3,851. But I believe, and I talked about this last year, I believe that number is a little shy from the actual because Comm Center has since readdressed the way that they report and record activity, and it has become a lot more focused. And I think that's the reason, especially last year, we saw that shift. And so this, in 2020, this current report is more reflective of that type of reporting.
Interesting. 5,612. That's just about if every single person in the city called the police department at some point in the year. That's very close to our population.
Yeah, definitely is. And then, as I mentioned earlier, the last 2 pages of the report are the task force activity, and you can see that this is the one area that remained consistently higher, especially when you compare it to the last several years. This is the one area that did not decrease. And we continue to address these issues. The task forces doing a lot of very good work. We have a lot of very good working relationships with our neighboring agencies, and I believe that through these partnerships we're able to continue to successfully address these issues that face our community. So, Mayor, that's all I have for the report, and I'll be happy to address any questions.
Are there questions or comments for Chief Gregory?
Keep up the good work.
Yeah,
Thank you. Appreciate it.
and appreciate all the great information, the detailed information.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Thanks, Matt, very much.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hopefully the roads will stay safe out there.
I hope so, yes. All right.
Yes,
Thank you.
please feel free to go home,
Okay.
because we want to get everybody, try to get them home to, before the snow starts.
Sure thing.
So,
Thank you.
I do have one question, Matt.
Yes, sir.
In regard to the drug issues for the task force, is there any particular age group that you see as more usage than another age group, or is that a fair question?
Not really. And that's really the issue with drug addiction and drugs themselves, is it really doesn't know any boundaries. And I don't just mean physical boundaries, geographical boundaries. Yeah, drugs has affected every socioeconomic class, every age, every race, equally, unfortunately. And we see that time and again, not just with our patrol activities, the types of calls we're dealing with on the street. A lot of the calls that we're dealing with, whether it be domestics, suspicious activity, have some root in drug activity. But beyond that, specifically focused on the task force, we see that as well. We see all types of ages and individuals that have been unfortunately affected by this. Yes, sir.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, man.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Good job.
Have a good night. Thank you very much.
There.
Okay.
Man, be safe, buddy.
Thank you.
Okay, so Joe Hughes is here, and I'm going to kind of let this segue a little bit into Jerry's report because it is kind of related. So under strategic issues, Joe is here to kind of talk to us a little bit about, remember last council meeting, we discussed that there's a possibility of a tower going up in the Deer Creek Ridge area, in that subdivision, that we could possibly, if it's built, we could have some equipment on there to help our reception, our radio reception into the Mudlick facilities, which now we have 2. So I'll let Joe speak a little bit to this, and Jerry can jump in as well. So take it away.
Actually, I'll go ahead and let Jerry kind of lead this, and I'm just kind of here for questions. Just know that, we have no affiliation with this tower.
Sure.
We designed it. We have all the engineering. We've done all the engineering on it, but it's up to the private citizen Virgil, who is going to be erecting that structure. So,
Okay.
I'm just here to help answer any kind of questions that there might be, along with Jerry.
Okay. So Jerry, go ahead.
Actually, from our end, as you remember in our discussions with last meeting, this benefits us by giving us a crucial link to our intranet, and also would give us the ability to go back to using some company type radios that we could eliminate some of our cell phone usage with these radios. So that's kind of the overview of what we're looking at doing. Now, as far as what is being asked of the city, is if the tower is built, just something from the city that supports that we would be interested in leasing space on that tower for a radio antenna and a antenna for our intranet. So that's really all that this request is tonight for council, is that council would be interested if the tower is built to possibly lease space on it.
Right. We're not, this isn't a letter of support to actually build the tower. This is a letter of support that if the tower is constructed, we would like to have some of our equipment on there to help to improve our reception. That's what we're asking this evening.
that was not just for cell phones, it was for,
It was to basically eliminate the part of, I think what Jerry's talking about is cut some of the cost of the cell phones and go to more of the radios that they used to
Right,
have.
like used to have,
Those
yeah.
costs have come down and offset where cell phones have just risen.
right.
So I think that's where Jerry was going.
And the Mudlick facilities specifically, as we all know, it's kind of in a bowl there.
Yeah, yeah.
It's in a valley, and if you look at the topography of the area, that tower would basically create a pretty good line of sight through the Brushy Fork Valley and connect it right out to the Mudlick. So the area's been researched by Raven Rock and to kind of show us that yes, this is an ideal place for us to have some equipment because it would help that particular area.
And all the FAA clearances and everything, so all the engineering's already been done.
Right, you've got the FCC license and everything, so, and of course,
And really, since it's so close to the airport, the FAA had to write off on it too, so.
right.
Yeah.
And of course, Raven Rock is our provider here, and this would be also involving our intranet, not internet, intranet. So,
Okay.
Yes, it also eliminates the need for cell data, or would eliminate the need for cell data in like our police vehicles, because they would have access via our private network and not have to use that cell data anymore in their cruisers.
right. If there's no further discussion, I'd go ahead. CJ, do you have something?
Are we gonna,
No, okay.
is this just for information or?
No, I'm gonna ask for a motion.
Okay.
I'm gonna ask for a motion that the city, through a letter of support, that if the tower is completed, we signify that we want to have our apparatus as a part of that tower.
Okay, got it. I'll make that motion.
Yeah, okay.
What's the, is there an expense or cost to that?
Yes, there will be. We don't know though yet what that would be because the tower's is not actually the tower's is not constructed yet. It's still a mythical feature.
But we'll have that information at some point.
We will.
Yeah.
Yes.
Second?
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Motion by Mrs. Allball, a second by Mr. Rylance. Hearing the need for no further discussion, we'll call for the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those like sign opposed. Motion is carried. Thanks, Joe. We appreciate it. Jerry, if you want to go ahead into your report, we'll entertain you now.
Okay. I've ordered the phone system for the new facility out on Mud Lake, and I've completed the grade work for the new access road at the UCDA property on Brushy Fork Road. We'll install the geotech fabric and stone as soon as the weather breaks. Street department continue to work on move in on the new building. Of course, with the weather we've had, we've plowed a lot of snow. The update on the Gateway West, we actually got the approval to go ahead from the DOH major culvert repairs. We had to do a little bit of redesign on the sidewalk there. They were requesting wider, which we had intended after we got on site, started building it. We wanted to do that anyway to make it a little wider in that area. So they're asking for 5 feet instead of 4 there for a clear span sidewalk, which isn't a problem. We'll be able to take care of that. And we'll get back on it as well as start on the North Canal Street sidewalk as soon as weather clears. The sewer department, 33 West North Side, the cruise lane pipe up to Mike Rawson's property, and the rest of the crew is performing painting and maintenance in the plant and the shop. Water department's crews are working on plant maintenance as well, and they're having some issues with one of the valves in the plant, and that's a result of some of the power issues they've been having there. Waste department, I have nothing new to report. And under engineering, the FEMA generator hazard mitigation grant number 2, the bid opening for the 7 generator transfer contracts were held on Tuesday, February 9th at 1:30. The apparent low bidder on all 7 contracts is Mountain State Electrical Contractors. with a combined value of $438,574. Jay is planning on asking FEMA about the possibility of considering a couple of change orders that would benefit the sewer department before officially awarding the projects. FEMA generator hazard mitigation grant number 1 anticipates the advertising the project for bid in mid to late March. Project involves 3 generators at the raw water intake, the wastewater treatment plant, and the public safety complex, North Spring Street utilities and street improvement project, the subsurface drilling of 5 boreholes for next week's subsurface investigation bores was completed on February 8th. The first 3 boreholes revealed lots of running sand and poor soil conditions, which is kind of what we expected. The geotechnical report with a summary of findings and proposed remediation to be completed before February 28th. The water system improvements in the area is completed except for one road crossing, which cannot be completed until the new sanitary and storm sewers have been installed. And we're still waiting word from the gas company as to what their improvement plans are. Vicksburg utility development, we had a meeting with the folks, the property owners today, and discussed the installation of both water and sanitary sewer lines to the development. The first phase of the project includes the development of 5 lots, while the complete development would include up to 16 lots for development. And from our meeting today, it looks like that the property owners are looking to move forward on both water and sewer for that development. And Mayor, that's all I have unless there's questions.
Any questions for Jerry?
Good report.
Okay.
Thanks, Jerry.
Thank you, sir.
Gary.
Thank you all. Be safe.
Be safe, bud.
I spoke with our city attorney, Tom O'Neill, this afternoon. He does not have a report this evening. He is on the call, but he is part of the meeting, but we don't really have any major legal matters right now. So he's just participating and is here if need be. Going down to correspondence and information, Vince touched on the Zoning Board of Appeals meeting on Leonard Street. We have a Buckhannon City building received certificate of the 2020 Census Community Partnership and Engagement Program. We've got FEMA Emergency Power Generators Hazmat Mitigation Project Grant number 2 bid opening results. And we've got news release Art 26201 to present an exhibit by, help me with the last name, CJ, what you probably know, Villa Magna, Robert Villa Magna at the Colonial Theater Gallery. So I saw paper on the window, so I assume they're getting ready for that. Under the consent agenda, under E4, 5, and 6, I don't have anybody for those positions yet. I've spoken with a couple people, but we don't have any yeses yet. So those still remain needing to be filled. If you have any idea for any of those positions, that would be a representative of the Buckhannon River Watershed Association, representative of the Buckhannon Upshur Airport Authority, or representative on the Upshur County Parks and Recreation Board, please let me know. Like I said, I've spoken with a few people, but I don't have yeses yet. So the rest of the consent agenda is E1, 2, and 3. We have the approval of the minutes from the regular meeting on the 4th of February, as well as special meetings on the 10th and 16th of February. And of course, those were our 2 budget working sessions thus far. Approval of the building and wiring permits, and approval of the payment of bills. Can I have sorry?
May I we do have a name for the Buckhannon Upshur Airport Authority. I don't have that in front of me, but I will communicate it to you offline.
Okay, that sounds great, Tom. Thank you.
Next meeting, sure.
Okay. Can I have a motion that we approve our consent agenda? We have a motion by Mr. Thomas. We have a second by Mrs. Allball. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those like sign opposed. Motion has carried. We have already dispensed with all of the matters under strategic issues for discussion and or vote, so we are down to council comments and announcements. We will begin with Mrs. Allball.
I don't have anything. I'm just glad to be here.
Well, we're happy that you are here. I already got to see you at the waste board meeting, but now the council gets to have you here in person.
A little bit of time.
We're glad that you are back and with us.
Thank you.
Mrs. Bucklew.
I just wondered if you are still working on a board for the theater.
Yes, and Tom is working on the ordinance that will create that. I believe, Tom, when are we looking at that next meeting?
Well, the city can go ahead and make the appointments now under the memorandum that was approved previously. The follow-up ordinance will be ready for first reading at the next council meeting in 2 weeks. But if there are individuals and the council wants to go ahead and make those appointments, it can do so within the context of the memorandum. The city has just the inherent power to do that, even without the ordinance, frankly, because we're only talking about what is effectively an advisory group. It's not a board with kind of fiscal duties. It's not going to be collecting and spending revenue. It's really an advisory body. So we'll do an ordinance just because that's kind of tradition and custom. But as far as I'm concerned, the council is empowered to go ahead and appoint that board now.
Okay. Okay, then let's have, at the next council meeting, we'll have Teresa put a line item on the agenda under the consent agenda as to name the actual board, and I'll work with the council members who have passed on names to me between now and the next 2 weeks to get that finalized. Does that sound like a plan?
Sounds good.
Okay. Thanks, Tom. Pam, do you have anything else for us?
No, that's it. Everybody be safe out there.
Okay, thank you very much. CJ.
I'm good.
CJ's good. Mr. Thomas.
I'm good.
Wow. Mr. Sanders.
Well,
I knew it.
I have a couple of good news. A non-participating member of our meeting tonight is with us, and it's Councilman Jack Rigger. He is on the phone. He has been listening in. He has sent a couple of text messages over. So even though he is still recovering from COVID-19, and he appreciaes all of the thoughts and prayers that his friends and those loved ones have been setting up for him. He is remaining active as much as possible. He's not allowed to talk. The doctors want him to conserve his oxygen and energy and so forth. But before the meeting started, I did have the microphone around to everyone in council chambers, and they could say hi to Jack. So we welcome Jack to the meeting. He plans to hopefully participate in the next budget session, and if he gets his doctors okay, he'll be able to talk and participate in that. And he just sent another message, and let's see, it's real time here. We're going to get a scoop. He said, "Thank you, Randy." So there we go. And he's a great guy. He's a great member of the community, a great council person. We need him. We need him back soon. Very quickly, had two.
Come back fast, Jack.
That's right.
We miss you.
David Thomas wants you back fast. He misses you. We all agree with Mr. Thomas. Very quickly, had two international Zoom calls this week. One with the members of the executives with Wormsby out of Canada. They're very happy with the progress that we've reported thus far in our 2023 event. Something that was really cool to be a part of was another Zoom call with a band in Guatemala. And there were over 100 parents on that Zoom call who have given a thumbs up for their children to participate. They're going to start the process of raising their funds, applying for visas when the State Department's reopen and so forth. It was so exciting. We spoke through an interpreter, which was a great experience. So it's really, it's really encouraging to see the international participation growing and so forth for WAMSB 2023, July 17th through the 24th. So that's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Sanders.
Thank you.
And thank you for your continued work with bringing the band showcase to our community. Just a couple things. I want to remind everybody out there, with all the snow and ice that we've been getting, sidewalks are the responsibility of residents and business owners to take care of, to keep cleaned off. Also, there are certain streets in town that the city street department does not clear. They are part of the state highway system, and those are as follows: Main Street from City Hall westward to the underpass at Main Street exit, in which then it becomes Weston Road and continues with state care. North Florida Street across the bridge here, and Island Avenue, which becomes Route 151, Marion Street, Morton Avenue, South Kanawha Street to the Triangle, and then Locust Street as it goes out toward Clarksburg, which is Route 20. Basically, if you see a yellow double-line road in Buckhannon, corporate limits, that is of the jurisdiction to take care of by the state highway system, the DOH. All other city streets are of the responsibility of the City of Buckhannon Street Department. So I've had some questions about that over the past couple of weeks with a lot of snow that we've gotten. Having said that, it is the state highway department's responsibility to plow Main Street. But I had a conversation with Jerry earlier, and our city street crew is going to try to truck out some of the snow that is banked up on Main Street to help with parking and help with people being able to get to businesses. So I appreciate Jerry and the street department's crews stepping up to do that. They're going to try to get it out, as we're supposed to get some more snow, about 1 to 3 inches tonight here locally. So they're going to try to work on that in the morning, depending on how much we get, to try to get some of the piles out of here to make life easier downtown. It's going to get very cold this weekend. Please check on your neighbors. We've got low temperatures headed toward the single digits tomorrow night and into Saturday night. So please check on people that might be more vulnerable in our neighborhoods and make sure that they stay warm. I want to thank council and of course Amby Jenkins for all the work on the budget sessions that we've had the last couple of weeks. We will of course continue to have budget sessions over the next couple of weeks to finalize our 2021-2022 budget for our general fund. That is all I have. I would entertain a motion at 8:13 that we adjourn.
So moved.
All right. Thanks everybody. Stay safe.